You're down on your luck. Your noble house has fallen, and you are the last in your bloodline. You spent the last week tired and hungry, a far cry from your previous life. You stumbled into a dilapidated temple, your shelter for the night. You huddle up in the warmest spot you can find, and you are all alone with your thoughts. And all you can think about is the suffering you will befall on those who have wronged you. As you drift out of your consciousness, you hear an infernal voice say, "Let's make a deal." Or, you're a farmer who stumbled upon an ominous knife during a flea market and picked it up because a goblin stole your last one. And when you're chopping veggies, it keeps talking to you, and you eventually beckon to its need to stab people. And, the knife has a name, and its name is Beck Stabber. Hey y'all, my name is Tasha, and today we'll be doing a deep dive into the Warlock in 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Take a look at their basic mechanics and how you can maximize the roleplay out of this class. So, the Warlock class is a character that has made a pact with a being and are given powers similar to the chosen being. So, let's say you take the pact with the Fiend, you get powers and abilities that are similar to the Fiend, although, to clarify, you do not become a Fiend, just gain powers that are similar to a Fiend. So now let us go through the Warlock level by level, and I'll guide you through each ability and give you a few recommendations along the way. So, at first level you get your Otherworldly Patron and your Pact Magic feature. Your Patron is basically your subclass, and from the player's handbook you have a choice of 3 patrons: the Fiend, the Archfey, and the Great Old One. Xanathar's Guide to Everything adds the Celestial, the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide adds the Undying, and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything adds the Fathomless as well as the Genie. However, I'll do a more detailed dive into these subclasses in their own dedicated videos, and will link them in the description when I upload them. Second is your Pact Magic feature. This is what separates the Warlock from all other spellcasting classes. All other spellcasting classes have a number of spell slots of differing levels that they can use to cast spells. So every spellcasting class has around 4 spell slots per spell level, with the exception of things like 8th to 9th level spells. So classes like the Bard, Sorcerer, and Wizard can get up to total 20 spell slots by later levels. By the maximum level of 20, Warlocks get a maximum of 4 spell slots. But Warlock spellcasting has its perks. First, Warlock spells come back on a short rest instead of a long rest, meaning you can be more haphazard with these spells. Not only that, but the spells are also automatically upcasted at the highest level possible based on your level. So, assuming you're level 5 and you cast a first level spell like Armor of Agathis, it'll automatically be upcasted to 3rd level. There's no way to downcast this, however. This makes Warlock spells unique in the sense that their spells can be more like an event or a power that they bring forth rather than a simple part of their kit. This makes Warlock spells very mysterious and awesome, as the automatic upcast can lead to pretty cool things. Like at 12th level, Armor of Agathis gives you 25 extra temporary hit points and 25 damage when you get hit in those temporary hit points. It's pretty cool. However, this also comes with its downsides, as some spells, like Mirror Image, which is an amazing spell by the way, do not gain any benefits from upcasting, so it may feel like you're using a high level spell for nothing. Moving on to level 2, we get to the most unique and defining feature of the Warlock class, the Eldritch Invocations, or as I like to call it, Patron Dress-Up Time. These things are like mini perks that can change the way you roleplay and fight with your character. Some of these have level requirements, so I'll list the ones available when we get to that level, and then give my recommendations at the end. So, at this level, you gain the following. First are the Eldritch Blast Invocations. These are invocations that enhance the cantrip Eldritch Blast, and it goes without saying that you need the Eldritch Blast cantrip to use these. So, the first invocation we'll be looking at today is Agonizing Blast. When you cast Eldritch Blast, add your Charisma modifier to the damage it deals on hit. This is a very good combat invocation because it just adds more damage to your Eldritch Blasts. Also remember that Eldritch Blast does not add damage dice to its single fire, but it fires multiple Eldritch Blasts, which means that the damage here will rack up. If you can hit 3 Eldritch Blasts and your Charisma modifier is plus 4, that's an additional 12 damage you're doing with your Eldritch Blasts. It's super good. Second, Grasp of Hadar. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with your Eldritch Blast, you can move that creature in a straight line 10 feet closer to you. This is cool if you want to flavor your Eldritch Blast as like scorpion chains, but it's also useful in combat utility. If your enemy's, let's say, on a hill, like let's say a 40-foot drop, you can fire Eldritch Blast, pull him 10 feet closer, and he has to fall on the hill and take a lot of damage. So it's useful for controlling the battlefield in certain ways. Like the next one. So the next one is Repelling Blast. This is the exact opposite of Grasp of Hadar. When you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast, you can push the creature up to 10 feet away from you in a straight line. This has the same sort of utilities, although I don't see as many situations this is used as much as Grasp of Hadar, but it's good to take, especially if you need space when you fire Eldritch Blasts. The next one is Eldritch Spear. When you cast Eldritch Blast, its range is 300 feet. It's important to note that the default range of Eldritch Blast is 150 feet. So, you're adding double the range, which, honestly, doesn't add that much because a lot of my combat maps are not that big. But if your DM employs combat maps that are huge, this would be a boon. A very good boon. Not only that, you can play yourself as like a Eldritch Sniper who can like hit things from far away like pew pew. Anyway, next up is Lands of Lethargy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with your Eldritch Blast, you can reduce that creature's speed by 10 feet until the end of your next turn. This is super good, because reducing your opponent's movement speed by any means is good. That opponent cannot move to certain choke points, cannot maybe get to the backline. It's a really good invocation. Not only that, it's until your next turn, which means that if they have legendary actions that allow them to move out of their turn, it's still reduced if he goes before you. So this is super good. And of course with Eldritch Blast, you can just apply that almost every turn. Next are your Cast at Will Invocations. These invocations allow you to cast certain spells without expending a spell slot. Note, this does not mean that you can cast a spell instantly, it simply means that you don't need to spend a spell slot when casting these spells. If the spells take an action, then it takes 6 seconds to cast it. If it's a bonus action, then it's a bonus action to use it. So, first spell, Armor of Shadows. You can cast Mage Armor on yourself at will without expending a spell slot or material components. This is a must-have for every Warlock who goes into a fight. And in Dungeons & Dragons, you always go into a fight. This is just a must-have, especially if you're not going Hexblade, where you have medium armor proficiency. This is your best option. It's a must-have invocation in my opinion. Second, Beast Speech. You can cast Speak with Animals at will without expending a spell slot. Hey, you want a little bit of Druid in your Warlock? This is the way. So, moving on to the next one, Eldritch Sight. You can cast Detect Magic at will without expending a spell slot. This is just really good general use, and if you're a DM who likes to magically hide traps or use magical traps, this is a great way to sort of like counteract that, so you can see whenever a thing is magical or whenever there's some sort of magic obscuring an object. It's super cool, and you don't have to spend a spell slot or spend 10 minutes to ritual cast Detect Magic anymore. Yeah, it's good. Next up, Mask of Many Faces. You can cast Disguise Self at will without expending a spell slot. This is so good and so fun. I played a Warlock where he was a criminal on the run, and he had to change his disguise every town he ran. And it was just super fun too. You can change up your accents. It's just fun. It's fun. It's especially fun if you want to play a prank on your other party members. You know, you transform into them, do a crime, and they're like, hey, they did it. Anyway, so finally, we have Fiendish Vigor. You can cast False Life on yourself at will as a first level spell without expending a spell slot or material components. False Life gives you, at first level anyway, gives you a flat 1d4 plus 4 temporary hit points. So a maximum of 8. And on average, about a 5 or 6. This is pretty good, especially at lower levels, just to soak up extra damage and give yourself a little bit more oomph during and before a fight. Yeah, it's just good at lower levels and it kind of falls off at later levels. Still cool though. Next, we go to what I like to call build invocations. You take these because you want to fulfill a specific build or add fluff to your character. First is Beguiling Influence. You gain proficiency in Deception and Persuasion. Very plain, though I can see some uses if you want to expand maybe your skills. Though I don't think it's worth taking an invocation over. Next is Devil Sight. You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical, up to a distance of 120 feet. This is one of the only ways to see through magical darkness, so it's pretty cool. Next up is Eldritch Mind. This is from Tasha's Cauldron from Everything, and you have advantage on Constitution saving throws to maintain your concentration spells. This is one of the better parts of the Warcaster feat, so it's good to have this as an invocation, though it's not as good as just getting Warcaster itself. Next, Eyes of the Runekeeper. You can read all writing. Very good for those bookworm warlocks out there. I know you're out there reading your tomes and whatnot. Next is Gaze of Two Minds. You can use your action to touch a willing humanoid and perceive through its senses until the end of your next turn. As long as the creature and you are on the same plane of existence, you can use your action on your subsequent turns to maintain this connection, extending the duration until the end of your next turn. And while perceiving through the creature's senses, you benefit from special senses it has. Though, while you're doing this, you're blinded and deafened to your own surroundings. This is like using one of the better parts of the Find Familiar spell, being able to see through your familiar and applying it to a willing humanoid creature. So maybe you can use this to traverse a place with darkness if you don't have dark vision or don't have the Devil's Sight invocation. In that case, it can be useful, though I don't see the prolonged use of this. So, my recommendation for the 2 invocations you can take at level 2 depend on what you're going for. If you want to be a beast in combat, Agonizing Blast for the extra damage and Armor of Shadows for the bump in your armor class are your bread and butter. Though if your DM allows it, Eldritch Mind for the everlasting concentration spells is also good. If you want to be a cool, stealthy warlock, pick up Devil's Sight to say no to darkness, and Mask of Many Faces so you can change your appearance at will. Finally, if you want to be the all-knowing big brain boy, the little bookworm, those kind of bookie warlocks of the party, then you can take Eldritch Sight to always know where the magic is, and Eyes of the Runekeeper, so you can read all those nerdy little books. Next up, at level 3, you also get your Pact Boon. At this point, your patron has decided to bestow you a gift and gives you 3 options, and 4 if you have Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So, the first pact you can acquire is the Pact of the Blade. Your patron gives you a sort of amorphous magical weapon that you can create in your hand. You can use an action to create this pact weapon in your empty hand, and it can take the form of any weapon so long as it is one-handed and it is not a ranged weapon. However, this can be circumvented with later invocations. This weapon also counts as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistances and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. This is a free magic weapon at level 3. It's so good. Also, your pact weapon disappears if it is 5 feet away from you. It also disappears if you use this feature again, if you dismiss the weapon, that doesn't require an action by the way, or if you die. You can also transform a magic weapon of your choice to be your pact weapon, although this requires a few extra steps. You need to perform a 1 hour long ritual which can be done over the period of a short rest. Once you do this, whenever you dismiss your pact weapon, it shunts into an extra dimensional space where you can summon it again whenever you want. However, if you want to use another magical weapon, you have to perform the 1 hour magical ritual again to break the bond of the weapon and to bond with a new weapon. Also, this cannot be done to artifacts and sentient weapons, which means no pact Black Razor. Thank the fucking Lord. So, the second pact that a warlock can take is the Pact of the Chain. You learn the Find Familiar spell and can cast it as a ritual. The spell doesn't count against your number of spells known. And when you cast a spell, you can choose one of the normal forms in the Find Familiar list, or you can take one of the special forms specific for this pact. An imp, a pseudo-dragon, a quasit, or a sprite. Additionally, when you make an attack as a warlock, you can forego one of your own attacks to allow your familiar to attack with its reaction. This is not the best part, since it needs to use its reaction to attack, but like the Pact of the Blade, this can be further enhanced with later invocations. It's gonna be a pattern. The third pact that a warlock can take is the Pact of the Tome. Your patron gives you a sort of cool grimoire book that's filled to the brim with extra cantrips. This is called the Book of Shadows, and when you gain this feature, you can choose an additional 3 cantrips from any spell list. And while the book is in your person, you can cast these cantrips at will. They don't count against your cantrips known, and they don't appear in the warlock spell list, and nonetheless they work as warlock spells for you. If you lose your Book of Shadows, like let's say, I don't know, you throw it down the sewer, or a kid steals it, or it burns, you can perform a 1 hour long ceremony to receive a replacement from your patron. This ceremony can be performed in a short or a long rest, and it destroys the previous book. So, that kid is like, hey, I have a book of cantrips now. It's like, oh no, it's gone. Anyway, the fourth and final pact that's added by Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is the Pact of the Talisman. Your patron gives you an amulet, a talisman that can aid in the wearer when the need is great. When the wearer fails an ability check, you can add a D4 to that roll, potentially turning the roll into a success. And this can be used as many times as your proficiency bonus. If you lose the talisman, you can perform a 1-hour ceremony to receive a replacement for your patron. This is, in my opinion, not the best out of the pacts, but it's for those people who want better ability checks, I guess. If you're playing the face of the party, like a face warlock, this could be useful. I don't know. So, out of those pacts, I would say that the most cool one is the Pact of the Blade, because you can just summon a weapon out like those witch knights in video games. But, it's up to the warlock how they want to play. If you want to be a cantrip blaster, Pact of the Tome works great. If you want to be good at the ability checks, Pact of the Talisman is good. Or, if you want to be a Yu-Gi-Oh! Summoner guy, you can totally play Pact of the Chain too. But, it's up to you. I just like the Pact of the Blade the most. Now, moving on to 4th level, you'll get your ASI, or your ability score improvement. Typically, you want to use this to even out your odd ability scores, or to enhance your damage ability score, which in this case is Charisma. And, just to make your spells more effective and deal more damage. But you also have the option for a feat. And there are some pretty cool feats that really help the Warlock, and some generally good feats for Warlocks are Warcaster, if you want to be a concentration god and if you want to use spells as an opportunity attack. And another one is that I like is Fey Touched, because Fey Touched gives you an extra ability score, one choice. I think it's Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma. It gives you a couple of free spells from a certain from a certain school. And one of them is Misty Step, which is a really good spell. And as a Warlock, you have a free Misty Step. That's super cool, especially since you have a tiny amount of spell slots. And yeah, that's just cool. Hey guys, so that was part 1 of the Warlock guide video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. And if you want to see more of this, please subscribe. I'll have the next video up in a week or 2 maybe. I don't know, I'm still figuring all this out. But yeah, look forward to it, and I see you in the next part of the Warlock guide.